Hey, welcome to Union on Demand. Hey, I'm so glad that you are joining us again today, and I have some awesome news. This will officially be our last Union on Demand video. Starting next week, March 23rd, we're going to be meeting back in person at the warehouse at 7:30. I have loved these opportunities to put these videos together, but I do have to say, I miss you guys. I miss seeing you guys. I miss hanging out in person. And these videos have been huge opportunities for us to engage and continue to move Union forward, but it's just not the same. And so I'm looking forward to being back together. Many of you haven't attended Union before, and I'm excited for you to have a chance to just see our space and experience Union in person. Also, I know there are some of you who are not ready yet to return back meeting together, and that's okay. We will still have a great way for you to engage online until you're ready to return. So for this week, as we begin week 1 of a new series, I hope you watch this together and discuss the questions below with your group. All right, to start out, I just have a question. As a kid, what was your favorite thing to have for dinner? Like you come inside from playing outside and you'd be super hungry, and as soon as you walked in, you inhaled and you just smelled the deliciousness and you knew tonight was going to be a great night. What was it for you? Mashed potatoes, meatloaf, maybe Thanksgiving food, maybe your family would make like breakfast for dinner. What was your favorite? Mine was wet burritos. That was until the summer when I was 8 years old. After that, everything changed. When I was 8 years old, I sat down for dinner and I ate until I was so full, I was stuffed. And then even though I knew I was full, I decided that I wanted just a little bit more. And you know where this is going, right? Like I got up from the table after dinner, I walked down the hall to my bedroom, I laid down on my bed, I looked up at my ceiling, regretting my decision and listening to my body tell me that I had just made a very, very bad choice. And it turns out my body was right, and my body decided to correct the mistake. Now, you were probably a smarter kid than I was, and you never ate yourself sick, but you know what that's like, right? It doesn't have to always do with food. Sometimes it's, just one more episode on Netflix, and then you finish watching it, and you realize that, oh man, now it's 3 a.m., and I'm only going to get a little bit of sleep before I have to get up for work tomorrow. Or maybe it's, a third beer when you know you should probably only have 2. Or maybe it's something you buy on Amazon, and you know that you overextended yourself just a little bit, and it's gonna be really hard for you to make this month's rent payment. You ever feel like you're kind of just walking this tightrope, and you know that if you could just have a little bit more of something, your life would finally be great. But it's gonna cost you something somewhere else. I think a lot of us are walking on this tightrope, and we're trying to figure out how we can get just a little bit more without falling off. And I think we do this all the time. Like if we zoom out and we look at our lives, we would see that we're probably totally satisfied in a few areas. Then there are a few other areas where we just want Just a little bit more money, a little bit more out of a relationship, one more glass of wine, one more Netflix show. We need one more person to voice into our lives that they think we're valuable. We need one more coat or one more cupcake or one more pound loss or one more sexual encounter, one more. Today, we're starting a new series, and the series is called Feed Me. And if you're anything like me, there's a chance that something inside of you pushes you to think that if I could just have a little bit more of something, then I would finally be content. I would finally be happy. I'd finally be whole. I would finally be enough. And I think this series, it hits at something deep inside every single one of us. And it's a desire that we have to feel like we're enough. And whether it has to do with money or friendships or fashion or beauty or relationships, we all have this longing to know that who we are and what we have is enough. And I hope that as we explore the scriptures and God's desire for your life, you're reminded each week that God has already made you enough. Even if it's just for the 15 or 20 minutes that you watch these teachings, my prayer is that every single one of you sees and hears and knows that you are beautiful and that you're valuable and that you are enough just as you are. Every year, my small group, we do this, white elephant tradition gift exchange at Christmas. We love it. It's a tradition we started a long time ago, and it's super fun just to see the crazy and goofy gifts that everyone gets each other. And my kids are getting old enough now that they participate with us. But a few years ago, we did our white elephant gift, and at the end of the night, one of my sons, he was totally bumming. Like you could tell that he was just really sad. And I think that year, we might have gotten like a massive jar of pickles or like a bowling ball or something like that. And when we asked him what was wrong, my son, he was just so sad and he was confused about why he didn't get a gift. He didn't care that the gifts were all just totally useless and were just funny. He was just sad because everyone else got one and he didn't. We're calling this series Feed Me because if we're all honest, I think that's often how we go through our lives, isn't it? If I could just have one of those like they do, then I would be perfectly content. Then I would be enough. Is that really true though? I think at the core of our gut, we know that having just a little bit more, it isn't going to be enough. We know that even if we had everything in the world, there's a possibility that we will never be satisfied. Ecclesiastes says that we'll never have enough. It says it this way in chapter 6, verse 7. Everyone's toil is for the mouth, but the appetite is never satisfied. As a quarterback, Tom Brady, in a 60 Minutes clip, he famously said that after winning 5 Super Bowls, that he thought success would be more than this. After earning more money and more fame and becoming the best at his job, he said, is this it? Like, is this all there really is? Imagine this. What if I were to put a number like right up here on the screen, and all you had to do was text the number, and I could fix any area of your life that you're just totally not satisfied in? Well, what would you text in about? Are you totally satisfied in your job, or your dating relationship, or your marriage, or your apartment, or your house, or your church, or your relationship with your family? Is there anything in your life that you are completely and 100% satisfied with? And as soon as I ask that question, there's this like tiny little seed of doubt that's planted, and you find yourself right back in this idea of feed me. Like if I just had one more, if I just had a little bit more, then I would be satisfied. Like Tom Brady, there's a guy, Ted Turner. I don't know, he's super rich. He owned a bunch of things. And he said, $1 billion feels like an empty bag. It's just not enough. He's saying money doesn't fix everything. He still had questions about things. He still felt loneliness and guilt. He still had struggles with fear and anxiety. Like money didn't fix those things. It didn't make those things go away. And you see this all the time with normal people when they win the lottery and then like 2 years later it's all gone, or they're in debt, or they're addicted to drugs, or they commit like some grievous crime. What if feeding this hunger inside of us, what if that isn't the answer to our problems? There's a fascinating story about a guy who fed his hunger and where it led him. It's in our Bibles. It's in our Old Testament in 2 Kings chapter 5. And the story starts out, and it's about this commander of an army, and his name is Naaman. And he gets real sick. He's got this infectious disease called leprosy. And someone tells him that he should go and he should talk to the prophet in Israel. His name is Elisha. He's a believer in the true God. And if you go to him and you talk to him, you're going to be healed. And so what does he have to do? He brings his entire group across the border into Israel, and he meets with Elijah. And through like this super simple process of trust, he's healed of his disease. And he's so thankful that he just asks, what can I give you in return for my healing? And Elisha, the prophet, he says, listen, no. The love of God, the grace of God, it's not for sale. Keep your money. I don't want any of it. Just go home and tell everyone how awesome God has been to you. And the problem is that Elisha's servant, a guy named Gehazi, he was off to the side and he was listening to this whole thing go down. And he starts thinking these crazy thoughts about himself, and this feed me monster inside of him begins to get hungry. Here's how the story continues. You can find it in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 20 through 22. It says this: Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, he said to himself, my master was too easy on Naaman, this Aramean, by not accepting from him what he brought. As surely as the Lord lives, I'm going to run after him and I'm going to get something from him. So Gehazi hurried after Naaman, and when he got to Naaman, he saw him running toward him, and he got down from his chariot to meet him. Hey, is everything all right? He asked. Everything is all right, Gehazi answered. My master sent me to say, 2 young men from the company of prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 sets of clothing. A talent of silver, it's like 75 pounds. It's not like Gehazi is asking for $20, but Naaman is good for it. In fact, he's happy to give it. But Gehazi has just crossed a line, hasn't he? Like he sees a chance to get more money, and so he stretches the truth. He lies because there's something hungry inside of him. The story continues, and he says, you know what? By all means, take 2 talents, said Naaman. He urged Gehazi to accept them, and then tied up the 2 talents of silver in 2 bags and 2 sets of clothing. He gave them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them ahead of Gehazi. When Gehazi came to the hill, he took the things from the servants and put them away in the house. He sent the men away, and they left. And when he went in, he stood before his master, and Elijah asked him, hey, where have you been, Gehazi? Me? Your servant didn't go anywhere, Gehazi answered. But Elijah said to him, was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time? Is this the time to take money or accept clothes or olive groves or vineyards or flocks and herds or male and female slaves? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and to your descendants forever. Then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and his skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. Do you ever cross a line because you become so obsessed with wanting to get just a little bit more that your understanding of right and wrong becomes unclear? Your understanding of God's desire for your life becomes confusing. Have you ever been so hungry for just a little bit more that you ended up hurting those around you or lying to those that you love? I don't think Gehazi would say that an incurable disease was worth a talent of silver and a few changes of clothes. Sometimes this hunger costs us, though, doesn't it? What will it cost you? Will it cost you your integrity, or your credit score, or your health, or your spiritual health, your job, your relationships, your marriage, your peace? What is it going to cost you, and will it be worth it? How we use our money tells us a lot about who we are. Our spending habits have a tendency to reveal our character. If you look at everything you spent over the last month, how much of it did you need to survive? And how much of it did you maybe just stretch yourself a little bit because you simply just wanted it? In 2018, 55% of Americans carried a balance on at least one credit card from month to month. In 2020, on average, every household in America carried just over $6,000 in credit card debt. That's on average. Like some carried none and others carried 30 to 40 grand or more. If these stats are true, then this idea of a hunger that drives us to make choices that aren't always the best for us, it's real. And there are some of you out there who you would say, you know what, I've never had a credit card. But then there are others of you who are probably nodding your head and you're saying, yeah, you know what, that's me, and I feel a little stuck right now. Well, let me just say this and encourage you. If you have a balance, now is the time to work on paying it off. Make it a priority. Get some advice from someone you trust. Maybe create a budget. Figure out how to spend less so that you can pay that down. Money and God, I think, are kind of a tricky subject. The economy in the first century looked super different than the American economy that we currently live in. But I think I can point to one thing for sure. God cares about where your heart is. If it's in this constant desire to be fed more and more and more, I think we need to recalibrate. So here's a fun thing to try. Grab your phone and open it up to your banking app or your credit card statement and go to where you can see like your total cash and all of your recent transactions. Got it? Okay, now, what if, I'm not gonna ask you to do this, but what if I asked you to hold that up to the camera and show your Zoom group? Like what goes through your mind when you think about doing that? Does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel like you would be showing your group your heart? Is it weird letting someone else see that? What if God is asking us, what if what he's asking us to do is to get to a point where we could say, God, I trust you. I can surrender my stuff to you. I can surrender my desire for more to you. And today can be the first day where I know that I am enough. What does it look like for you to move from feed me to full, from feed me to enough? A New Testament writer named Paul, he talks about this word contentment in a letter he writes called Philippians. We often see it, it's chapter 4, verse 13. It says this, it says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. We see this written on gym walls. We see athletes get tattoos of this. They write it on their hands or they write it on their shoes. Paul is saying, God is giving me the strength to handle what I have right now because that doesn't come naturally to me. I need God to do a miracle so that I can look at my situation and know that I can be content. And instead of writing this verse on our gym walls, maybe it would be better for us to write this verse like as a backdrop to our phones, or maybe rename our Amazon app Philippians 4:13, so that when we get ready to buy something that maybe we don't really need, we could say, oh yeah, you know what? I can be content. I can be content with what I already have. God's desire for our lives is not for us to live in slavery to money, but to live in freedom to Jesus. I think there might be some of you who would say, great, like awesome, but you know what? That doesn't really help me get unstuck. I need something more practical. I wouldn't know where to start when it comes to building a budget or paying down my credit card. I don't have any idea how I would work with my current income to start to save. Like I just feel stuck. Well, beginning in 3 weeks, we're going to start utilizing a resource called Financial Peace University. It's a simple training for how to do those things. It's a 9-week study, and you'll be put into a small group to work through the material. And if you don't really have like a good gauge on your money, this isn't something you should do. This is something that you need to do. These groups will be starting in early April, but you can sign up right now. In fact, there's a link right on the screen. You can text this number, or there's a link right below the video. Just take a second, stop what you're doing, and text this number. You're gonna wanna be a part of one of these groups. Hey, thanks so much for joining us again today. And next week, we will see you live in person at 7:30 p.m. at the warehouse on the East Paris campus.